That's a remarkable statistic in terms of turnover in the NFL. Not turnovers, but turnover of the roster. When you look at the fact that only 5 guys remain through this past season off of the Saints' Super Bowl championship team. What have you done for me lately, right? Ken Trahan, SportNOLAtv. Speaking of the New Orleans Saints, let's talk a little bit about where the Saints are right now. We'll get into the salary cap issues in a moment, but first and foremost, they lose another front office member, and Josh Lucas goes to the Bears as director of player personnel. Brian, this is an obvious move. When Ryan Pace goes there, you figure somewhere along the lines they always pluck somebody. In this case, they took Lucas with them.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan likes what he saw when he was around him, and Lucas was one of these guys that got a couple of promotions just like Ryan Pace did. So, yeah, it's a good get for them. And it's going to be interesting to see how Mickey and Sean rebuild their front office, football operations, I should say. I'm anticipating that Fontenot and Riperish, they'll collaborate jointly, getting back that football operations together again.
And the coaching staff still, of course, positions to be hired for. And Dennis Allen, a real possibility, Brian, that he might return to New Orleans?
Kenny, from what I understand, he came in for an interview last week, and I can't tell you what position he may have interviewed for. We can only speculate, and I'll speculate right here. I'm wondering if there's a secondary defensive coordinator's job at hand. We'll see what happens with all this, but they haven't made any announcements about it, and we'll see. Dennis would be a great addition to any staff, particularly here.
Well, the biggest problem the Saints have to face is dealing with the salary cap, because they're in very difficult shape where the numbers are concerned, although Mickey Loomis did say that they're in better shape this year than they were at this time last year. Yet when you look at the numbers, Amy, look at the numbers for NFL teams currently over the cap in 2015. The Saints, well, they're at the top by a large margin. The Cardinals, 49ers, Chiefs, and Patriots fall behind. Mickey Loomis has done a great job of being able to work with magic over a long period of time, but that's an ominous statistic, isn't it?
It really is. And I'll tell you this, that looking at the Saints this year, let's stop for just a second. We talk about the Patriots, who are on their way to another Super Bowl. We have seen over and over again the star players on that team, specifically Tom Brady, that have done what is necessary from a restructuring standpoint to make sure that he gets what is necessary to make them championship caliber every year. Saints are going to have that mentality. It can't always be just about the money, and I can feel Rickey's eyes, but it can't be just about that if you want to win championships. Not in this day and age, and not playing with the cap room that the Saints are playing with. You're going to have to take some of those large contracts, do what you can do on the restructuring, and then make some room to be able to bring in the personnel that is necessary to make this team championship competitive again.
Rickey, because NFL contracts largely aren't worth the paper they're written on, they can make moves with certain guys and just get rid of them. Now, it might count something against the cap, but it will reduce that number significantly. And then, of course, as Amy alluded to, you can get some guys, perhaps, to restructure, maybe take a little bit of a pay cut. And Marcus Colston was on that list we saw previously. He's Exhibit A. They'd love to keep him, and he'd like to stay here. Will he give the Saints a hometown discount? If so, he's a perfect case of what we're talking about.
Well, I mean, some of the guys got no other choice because don't nobody want them. So, they got to give you a discount. Well, what the Saints got to do is look out there on the broad and find some great football players, and that's been the thing lately. You're trying to get back to the Super Bowl, and anything else for New Orleans is unacceptable. So your thing is you got to go out there and do like New England and Seattle. You got to go out there and get some great football players with some good speed and some guys who know how to play football.
Kenny, I've thought about this the last couple of weeks and what you can do with this roster. And for one of the first years under Peyton, generally you build a roster to either continue as a champion or to beat and dethrone a champion. I think the Saints should not worry one iota about the rest of the division or the conference for that matter, and take care of in-house. My question to Sean and Mickey is this: where are you going to find your leaders? They didn't surface this year. Where is that leadership going to come from? Somebody from outside the facility? I don't think so. They've got to look within themselves, and somebody's got to take reins. It can't just be Drew Brees. They have got to have other people step up with a voice that can be heard in that locker room.
The Senior Bowl, of course, is always a gap bridger, along with the Pro Bowl, to the Super Bowl. And, of course, the Senior Bowl taking place in Mobile this coming Saturday, and you have some local interest there. A couple of LSU players, Lyle Collins and Connor Neighbors are there. Also, Northwestern State's Eamon Claiborne is there, and UL Monroe's Justin Manton, the kicker, also in Mobile this week. Amy, the Senior Bowl is not about the game itself, it's about the practices during the week, the one-on-ones. That's what the NFL coaches, scouts are looking at.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a recruiting event, period. Great, the game is entertaining sometimes, but the biggest thing is that it's allowing them to have that one-on-one, to be able to get a true feel of these players, and they're still trying to figure out who will translate well to the NFL and who won't. You know, there's a lot of talk about great players that are out there, and I think the question is becoming even more so defined as we see a lot of these college players that were great on the college field that you transition to the NFL and they're just busts. And there's a lot of pressure on these recruiting scouts and so forth to make sure that those mistakes happen less and less. And I tell you, what they put these kids through, it's rigorous. It really is. Right. And to make sure that doesn't happen.
You know, the Saints are going over there with another purpose this year than they have in the past. One, they're going to have to fill a coaching staff, and they may have to find people within the football operation. So there's another facet to why they're over there this year.
It's a convention, and Ricky, as a player, you know something about it, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the Senior Bowl Hall of Fame, but you going over there to look at those guys over there. That's not what you need for next year. I mean, you can get those guys for the future, but Saints is a team that they need help immediately. They don't need to be trying to coach nobody, get nobody for the next 3 or 4 or 5 years. They need to win now.
You're right. It's going to be a fun week, and obviously it'll be a first opportunity for NFL coaches in particular to get to see players up close and personal and maybe get to know them, the first exposure, so they start to formulate an opinion on certain players. It is time now for our SportsNOLA.com trivia question of the evening, and it's a good one, as Lenny comes up with, and I have no idea who is the only Senior Bowl MVP to play for the Saints, right? Who is it? Think about that. Meditate on it. When we return, we'll give you the answer, and our hot seat coming up, the uniform police. Rickey Jackson, beware, in a moment.